Good afternoon and welcome back to Mayor's Minutes. Happy Wednesday. I don't know if you've been outside yet, but if you haven't, get outside. Stop listening to the mayor and get out there. Grab some of that vitamin D because it is 60 degrees outside and sunny. And today is what, March 13th. Unbelievable, huh?
Yep, it's
So
great.
where did winter go? And I don't want to speak too soon. I don't want to jinx myself, so we'll leave it at that. It's gorgeous out there. Get out there, seize upon it. I got I got some feedback last week when I said our performance in the presidential primary was not really what I would hope for. And so people said, well, why do you say? So I got to be honest with you. We have over 30,000 registered voters in Methuen, 7,000 of whom voted. That is not enough people voting. And I know, people are going to say, well, what's the difference, Mayor? It doesn't make any difference. Or I don't like either of the two candidates. And I get all that. You got to get out and vote your conscience. If you don't like the two candidates, vote for somebody else, write somebody in. But please, by the time the presidential election comes around in November, please get out and vote your conscience, right? Because it's important. Even if it's a vote that says, I don't want either of these two, right? Write that in. You can write that in. So that's it. I did not chastise. Some people said the mayor chastised us. I wouldn't consider it chastising. I'm just stating a fact. In a city with 30,000 plus registered voters, 7,000 is too few coming to the polls. Whether it's a municipal, a state election, we've got state primaries coming up too in September, which kind of caught me off guard. So we have state primaries coming up the day after Labor Day, which is always a fun time to try to get a vote in, because most of the people are still on vacation mode, right? And so difficult. So welcome back, like I said. Glad to have you here. Just a reminder for the 1 billionth time, we've changed our medium from Facebook Live to YouTube. And you can submit live questions on the Methuen Community Studios YouTube channel. And if we see them, if the mayor's conscious enough to read them and see them, we will give them to our guests, and hopefully they'll answer them. Or the mayor will answer them, depending on what you ask. So just keep that in mind, because that is an important part of what we're doing here. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by two members of the Historical Commission, Mr. Ken Doherty and Mr. Dan Gagnon, both who are well known throughout the city, I believe, or at least well known to me. Love the historical write-ups that I see from both of you. I mean, when I go home, after a tough day, and I see like a property that you're going into the history of, man, do I love to, just sit down and clamp into that and see, some of the houses in Methuen have unbelievable histories behind them, right? So,
Thank you.
Did we ever do like walking tours of those houses?
I think at one time we had, many years ago, we had like a Victorian outing type of a thing we were doing annual. And we had tours of the city now. We had tours. We had bus tours with trolleys and things like that. But nothing that I know of that we've
because some of them are, some like the one directly across the house directly across from the Searles building, where I'm is a fantastic structure.
It really is.
Your history in that was super.
Thank you.
I loved reading it, right? And I like reading how it changed hands, how it went from, party A to party B, and you can see the evolution over time in both the structure and how people, handle it. So again, my guests are Ken Doherty. Raise your hand, Ken, so people can see you. There you are. And Dan Gagnon, both from the Historical Commission. And I appreciate you both coming in. We're going to start with some softball questions. Talk a little bit about your background, gentlemen. And I'll start with whoever. Just, give me your background, your life, married, kids,
Want to go first?
career.
All right. I'm married. I have 2 kids, grown, moved out of the house, and so we're empty nesters now. I've worked, I just recently retired. About a year ago, I retired. I used to work for the National Park Service. I was a park ranger doing cultural interpretation, so telling the history of Boston, the Navy Yard, Bunker Hill Monument, and the Freedom Trail.
Oh, cool.
So if I did that almost 30 years and loved it. I loved it, but it was time. It was time to move on. So now I get to focus on Methuen history, which I'm really happy about. And this fall, I think, is my 50th anniversary of being involved in Methuen history.
Wow.
So,
congrats.
I was 14 years old when I first started getting involved with Ernest.
So those math majors out in the audience just said 14 plus 50. So that's unbelievable. That's good. Because, you know, the funny thing is, gentlemen, I love to say history is a passion of mine, but I love meeting people like you where your passion and your zeal far exceeds mine. Right? So appreciate that. Ken, a little bit of your background?
Yeah, I'm married. My wife Paula, she's watching tonight, so I have to be on my best behavior. But I have 2 children. They're both adults and 5 grandchildren, so they keep us busy. And I was a Methuen firefighter for 30 years. And that's where I learned my history from the time I get interested in that when I got on the department. And started to see, I was at Central Fire Station, there's tremendous history there, and I started digging into it.
Tremendous history
in that building, and then just one thing led to the other, and I actually wrote a book on the history of the fire department back in 1996 for our anniversary.
I've been struggling to kind of obtain that because
it's hard right now.
A mutual friend, Joe Bella, told me, it's hey, go out now, it's out on Amazon, you can find it.
Sometimes
so I went
show
out, and I must have been too slow on the trigger because, couldn't find it. But interesting stuff. So it's interesting you bring up the Central Fire Station because it's great a structure is, and it's a fantastic structure. Not built for the vehicles that it's housing today, as you would know, right?
No, it isn't.
So one of the constant issues we face is trying to downsize the vehicles so that they fit in the building, right? And so I don't know that people recognize it enough. That's a challenge. But that fire station, Central Fire Station, was hay and buggy, right? I mean, it goes
in
back
1899, and it was all horse-drawn apparatus back at that time. There were horse stalls in the back of the station, and the other apparatus out front. And they were all smaller back then. A steam fire engine, a hose wagon, and a hook and ladder truck. But
was Methuen volunteer at that time? Was it? No,
it was full time.
It was.
It was an on-call department. I'm sorry. They had we didn't have full-time firefighters until about 1907, I think it was. I'll go back and look at my notes, but it was an on-call department since 1846. It was on call.
So, and let me ask this kind of generally to both of you. So, what was it that kind of drew you into the historical sphere, right? I mean, and I sit here and say, I love reading books about general history, but I love reading books about the wars, from the Civil War. I just finished my second time through it. There's a 3-volume chronicle of the Civil War written by Shelby Foote.
Shelby Foote, right.
It's fantastic. I mean, you feel like you're there, right? What was it that kind of got your juices salivating and made you want to, be involved with the Historical Commission?
Good.
Well, as I said, when I got on the fire department, I started walking around the station up there at Central, and they have a lot of memorabilia and relics from old fires and photos of all the firefighters. And one of them that kind of struck me was there was a big frame photo of an old firefighter, and there really wasn't much known about it. I didn't know what it was all about. Well, come to find out, it was the first firefighter killed in the line of duty. And it was John Quinn from 1914. And I started digging, and then get into the old log books and history books and things like that. Well, about that time, there was an old gentleman that used to walk by the fire station every morning. He used to go to breakfast at the Country Kitchen. He lived on Pelham Street. And you probably know him, Captain Quinn, Bill Quinn.
Sure.
And he was about 90 years old at that time. And he used to walk by the station. And he used to look for the firefighters and tell stories. And it was great. He'd stop by the station and listen to his stories and things like that. And that's how I got to know about a little bit of history from way back when. When he was a kid, he used to play in a tree out by the station. He told stories.
Was he any relation to the guy that
That was his father, the one that got killed. So he knew the whole story about that. So I got really interested in the history and talking to him and digging through the books. And then I come to find out that we had a 150th anniversary coming up in 1996. So I started working on that. That's when I wrote the book, and we had a big celebration here on that too.
That's great.
We had a huge parade. We had all kinds of fire trucks from all over New England, hand engines. We had a muster at the Tenney School at the time.
Oh, awesome.
And all that. And we had the mummers come up from Philadelphia. They were the
sure,
big attraction
at
the parade at that time. But it was a big event. It was a really, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So, you know, before I go over to Dan, you get my, you know, we were talking before we came on about the 300th coming up in 2026, and I won't be mayor, but I do want to impanel a citizens commission to start planning for that. And you know, I think of when I look at you know, the last couple of years, a couple of the parades, the Veterans Day parade has really been lacking, and you know, and I say that I get nothing but the greatest respect for our veterans, right, who have served for us. But it's difficult when there's more people in the parade than watching the parade, right? And that's really about the level we've come to with. So you know, I want to provide enough time, advanced planning and focus, so that you know we can, you know, if we decide to have a parade, it's like the one we did for our 250th that you mentioned, Dan, before, right? That was, you know, I remember because I was, I'm going to say, when was that? 250th was 76.
76.
76. So I was just out of high school, and I remember standing in a line, you know, 4 to 5 people deep, trying to watch the parade.
Really?
Right, and that was something, right? We've come a long way, maybe the wrong way, right? So, you know, everybody wants to watch everything on TV versus get out and watch the parade. But lots of time for planning. Dan,
My interest is, I mean, I've always had a great imagination. I love to read, and there were times where I would be, you know, hanging out with my friends, we're going through the woods, and we'd find cellar holes. Yeah. And I try to imagine what the cellar hole, you know, what was above there. My imagination was, at that point, was a little bit strange because I would think about, you know, Minutemen, you know, standing in the cellar firing against the British, and it didn't happen in Methuen. So, but about the time I was doing all of this, there was a thing in one of the local papers. Had a picture of the historian, an older historian in Methuen, Tom Doherty, and it had a picture, and he was talking to a kid, and the caption just said that, you know, the historian Tom Doherty is telling, you know, this child's name about a little about the history of Methuen. And I told my mother, I said, I'm interested in Methuen too. I want to know more about it. You know, I want to call this guy, and so she says, go ahead. So the phone book, we had an old phone book, and we went through the phone book. I found his name, I called him, and he was very helpful. He says the best person to talk to is Ernest Mack. He's the chairman of the Historical Commission. So I contacted him, and he made arrangements for me to meet him after school one day, and we went into the history room, which was in the Searles building. It's the second floor conference room. Yep. And all of the city's collection was stuffed in there. Just, I mean, you couldn't get to many of the things, but there was some things that were pretty cool that I, you know, was able to look at. And this was shortly before they moved over to a building next to the library. And once they moved over there, I started volunteering there on Friday nights. Ernest would, you know, talk to me about Methuen history. I'd look at photographs, and he'd tell me stories, and I just started developing more and more of an interest, and it was just fascinating. So to find more and more history in that collection, but also just to pick the brain of somebody who had been studying this for a lot longer than I had. So,
yeah, but so it's interesting you bring that up, because as I mentioned to you, you know, I think at one time we used to have some Methuen history taught to our high school students. Yeah. I don't believe we are any longer. I would really love to see that come back.
I'm not sure what's in the high school. We used to have a fellow who was on a historical commission with us years ago, back in the 90s, by the name of Michael Hughes. Yeah. And he was really into Methuen history. He was excellent.
He was a teacher, wasn't he?
He was a teacher. He was the head of the history department, I think,
great guy.
So I don't know if anybody's taken his place. You know, certainly.
There was another teacher, a woman who was teaching it also after he left, took that over, but she retired recently too.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard when people retire. Yeah, you got to replace them. All right, I got some questions that Jordan gave me. So, and if they're too tough, I apologize in advance. Just so MCS, I'm not seeing any live feed, so hopefully everybody else is seeing it out there in TV land. All right, so generally, what do you think the mission of the Historical Commission is? Either one of you.
Well, the commission gets its authority from the state,
Right.
and the main function of the historical commission is supposed to be advising the mayor and the city council on historic preservation efforts. Keep them informed of what's happening to establish National Register nominations and to try to get properties on the National Register. Methuen's unique, though, because when the historical collection, which had been controlled by another town board, the Methuen Historical Committee, and when they changed charter in '74, that committee was disbanded. And because the name historical is in both of the things, they gave the commission responsibility of the historical collection, the city's collection. So right now, because we have the Historic District Commission, and we also have a Historic Preservation Committee, which is attached with that, they tend to deal with more of the preservation efforts. Yep. So we're moving toward focusing. We support them in what they're doing whenever we're needed, but our focus is now back onto the historical collection to get that organized and make it available to the public.
Yeah. Now, would people be shocked, Dan, at some of the things that we have? Historical artifacts?
Yeah, we have a photo album from the Searles estate showing probably the photos where the album was created shortly after the Searles estate was built. Because there's pictures of it with Searles and his mother in one of the porticos in there, and so which is really a really great thing. We also have another photo album of the Tenney estate. As they're building in the background, you can see the big Tenney Castle is being built. You see the scaffolding all around it, and but it's taken from the deer farm that was in front of the building, so it is in the background. We have the lantern, and you could probably speak more on the lantern. That's from one of the firefighting apparatus. Cool. We have I'm trying to think, newspapers. We have a good collection of the later newspapers, the Methuen News, and Methuen, some from Methuen Transcript, Methuen Journal, that type of thing. Photographs, I mean, we have a great collection of photographs, and that we constantly get questions about. So, for me, when I look at the collection, I can't say there's one thing that's there. But we have the recruitment poster for the Methuen, for Methuen during the Civil War, when they recruited soldiers for the Civil War. We have the recruitment poster in there also. Yeah, we have, and then as far as the city's records, we have militia records that date back to around 1808 or somewhere around there. We have poll tax records that go back quite a distance. We have school records. We have, I think, a complete set of the school yearbooks. There's so much there that and I'm still going through a lot of that stuff too to rediscover it.
You'd be interested. So we're talking about. We need to talk to you guys. So we with the capital plan, we revitalized the Gill Avenue playground. So that's been completed. We haven't done the ribbon cutting yet, and I'm trying to think of the young man's name. Haldane.
Yes, Andrew Haldane,
So there's a marker over there for him.
Right.
And so we're dressing that up because some gentlemen came to town last fall. I don't know if you got a chance to talk. They were fantastic, and they spoke at the high school. And it actually made me go rewatch that miniseries, The Pacific. I don't know if you watch that, you see a Methuen native, Andrew Haldane, specifically mentioned in probably the first 4 or 5 episodes. He actually gets shot by a Japanese sniper on which island? I think it was Tarawa.
I think it was.
And he got the Distinguished Service Medal. So this guy, this is a hometown guy who really was quite the leadership example, right? And so we're going to try to, and we'll invite you. We're going to, spiff up the plaque, if you will, a little bit. So it's on a stone. And I said to Director Bauer and Steve Angelo, well, if we've got to, make the plaque brass to make it a little bit more, effectual, because I'll be honest with you, the Gill Avenue field looks great, right? And it's got a full court basketball court. It's got the first dog park in the city of Methuen. It's got some other things, but it's really nice. And yes, for the it still has the splash pad. We haven't taken that away. So it looks really nice, and we have cameras. Part of our city camera program. We have a camera that looks right into the park, and ostensibly that's to keep dumpers from dumping, right?
Right.
But you learn these intriguing things, and I didn't even know that when these gentlemen came to town last fall, that Methuen High School gives a Haldane Trophy out.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
So that completely caught me off guard. Then I was like, seriously,
Yeah.
They give an award every year for the Haldane recipient, which is a courage, which is really great. But if you haven't seen it, go watch the Pacific and look for Andrew Haldane. And then, later on in the program, we're going to talk about the groundbreaking, I shouldn't say groundbreaking, the ribbon cutting for the Gill Avenue Field, which is not scheduled to happen until around Memorial Day when the weather's a little better. And we may move that up, but, we're going to try to do it right and make sure that this young man who gave his life in service of his country is recognized appropriately, right? And that's a good thing. Just
pointed out also, the other Neil Playstead is named after a Methuen person also who was killed during the Spanish Civil War. He was a reporter and he had been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for an article he did. He was a sports reporter, but when the war broke out, he went there to cover it and was killed by an artillery shell.
Really?
Yes, and and for a long time, he was so well respected in the boxing community that they gave an Edward Neal Jr. award to the heavyweight boxing champion.
Wow.
For a number of years, up until recently, and then now it's Sugar Ray Robinson, I think, as they changed the name to that. But there was this national award for the heavyweight champion was named after a guy from Methuen.
Yeah, that's terrific to learn. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, my kids are shattered if they're watching because I've been lying to them for 30 years, telling them it was named after me. And Neil placed it, so not really. Are you guys involved in any other community groups besides the historical element, or are you really focused on the historical piece?
Pretty much the historical part of it. I'm on the Historical Society, which is changing now to the Historic Methuen Incorporated, changing their name. But I just got on that just a few months ago, actually, so I'm pretty green on that. So. But other than that, I mean, I'm full-time writing articles for Facebook. And
please keep writing them, right?
Thank you.
Because it isn't just me that likes them. A lot of people like them.
Yeah, people commenting on it, so and it's fun. It's finding, and you discover things like you're discovering now about these individuals from Methuen that nobody even knew about, and I'm starting to dig into this. And
now, how long does on a typical property or something that you're writing about on Facebook? How long does the research take you?
It all depends. If it's anything older than the late 1800s, it could take several days to go through it. Because I do the genealogy part too. Go through Ancestry.com and checking it. I could spend hours and hours and hours on these, but probably about 2, 3, 4 days, depending on the story. Yeah,
my good friend Joe Bella, I think he's with you guys too.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Joe's a good guy.
He would get, and I assume you two do, get requests from people to say, hey, can you tell me about, my family or this family or that, historical research requests, if you will. Do you get those still?
We do. See, my thing is I have a lot of projects that I'm working on, and sometimes one will feed off another one, so I don't. I try not to, get too distracted from that, because I got like 4 or 5 stories on the stove right now that I'm working on. So if I take on something else and I get distracted, and now we're working on another project, Dan and I and Sharon Pollard, Joy Kopowitz, Bev Brown, and Joe Bella. We're working on compiling a book. A comprehensive history of the town, the city, because right now Dan brought some of them with him. He's got this collection of all these books that we have on Methuen's history.
Well, let's talk about some of them. Because the only one I've seen is, I think, the one in the back, which was the Tribune came out. That didn't come out?
This one's published by the Historical Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. And this is the photographic history of Methuen. So we went through the collection and also requested from others, people who had pictures that they might want to share with us. The commission came together and each person did a section of this and did that.
Hold that up towards the camera.
So you can see that.
Yep.
So that's the Images of America, Methuen.
If somebody was interested in getting that, Dan, could they still get it?
Yeah, they're in some of the stores in the area, but also Amazon, of course.
Okay.
You can get that, or you can get it directly from the Arcadia Publications. It's the name of the publisher. There's that one, but then there's my book right here. This was Eclectic History of Methuen. These were only some of the articles that I wrote from Methuen. From Methuen Life, from about 2001 to, I don't know, I did it for 11 years, so writing articles.
And where could I obtain that?
And that's also on Amazon. You can get that on Amazon. So, and then
so let me stop it. So it's an interesting title, Methuen
an eclectic history. Yeah.
So that's the word I've used to describe Mr. Searles.
Okay. All right.
Right. So when you go through his property, it's hard not to be struck by the constant change in
different styles.
And actually, just so you both know, so I get besieged when the weather turns well for people to get married up on where Great Court was, the ruins, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm old enough, as they're both, that I actually remember the castle. Yeah. Right. So what a pity that we didn't preserve that. Yeah. That was a landmark that we lost, a once in a lifetime. But you know, I've been in PMA several times lately. We've got, you know, discussions going on there. And I often say, if people knew what was behind these walls, they would not get married at the ruins. Right? I mean, just some of the historical artifacts that are in the former PMA property are just stunning. He was an avid and eclectic collector of I mean, you name it, from like a table that's got like elephant feet or something, something carved feet. It's just magnificent, right? Yep. And as you go on his estate from building to building, you notice that the hallways are really small compared to the rooms in that, right? So they open up into grand rooms. I think of they're going to correct me, the chapel, the one that the nuns use, the chapel, was it's a magnificent marble room that he had put together.
The ballroom.
Yeah, but you know, you walk down like a narrow hallway that's got nice decorations on the walls and everything. Don't get me wrong. And then it opens up into a big room with tapestries, right? And I always comment, if people knew what was here, they would not be getting married up there. I know. Right?
I know.
So.
And it's this time of year, you can see part of the property with the chapel, the red chapel,
Gorgeous.
The building in the back, with the chime tower in the back. If you look down behind Paulette's funeral home, this time of year when the foliage is down, you can get a glimpse of it. It's unfortunate. It's hard to see, but when the sun hits it late in the afternoon, it's spectacular.
So I love that you brought that up, because this time of year you can actually kind of mentally see that he had planned to put a long driveway in, right? And those two columns down by Paulette's funeral home were, I believe, to be the entrance of the driveway, right?
That's right.
And he never got that because he couldn't get some land from the church across the street, I believe.
A little piece of land off of Park Street. He can never get it for whatever reason.
Right?
Nobody really seems to know exactly why, but there's some rumors about it. But
now there's some discussion, and maybe that Searles and Tenney's, you know, well, they had different life. They didn't always see eye to eye, and they did some things occasionally to you know, put a fly speck in the ointment of the other one.
I don't know about that.
Well, there was some. I mean, there was in some histories they discussed the animosity that they had between the two. So when Tenney was doing his bit and he was building his winding road to go up to the castle, Searles had, according to one count, Searles had a concern that once you get there, you're going to be able to look over into his property toward his residence, which was the provincial house eventually. And so what he did was he built the stone tower right at that edge as it cuts across to block the view right there. And then there was also stories of when, I forget whether it was Searles or Tenney, would raise the British flag during the 4th of July. So you know, there was that type of stuff.
So they were typical neighbors, is what we're saying.
Sounds like it. Yes. You know, and
plus
they
he
built
had the
fences.
chime tower that was ringing the chimes every hour or something right next to
the chimes, the Caroline. So that Caroline doesn't play anymore. It's too bad it doesn't, right? Because I'll date myself. So I go back to, when the no school alert
the fire
used to come out of the
station.
central fire
Yeah.
station, right?
A lot of people mentioned about the horn.
you weren't watching TV or listening to radio. You were like, yeah. Let me hear it. So let's talk a little bit more about the books that you bought, because that's intriguing to me.
Okay. Well, of course, this was the sort of, for me, the one that got me going. Ernest Mack wrote a book during the bicentennial of the town, and it's called Bridges from the Past. And what he did was he found that Joseph Howe's book, and I have a copy of that here. This is a reprint of it, but Joseph Howe book is a historical sketch of Methuen. He didn't cover some things that Ernest felt that should be covered, or that there was additional scholarship that had been discovered after this was done. The original one when was done in, was it 1876 or something?
1876, and then he did another one in 1888.
Yeah, that was
basically
yeah,
was
that
the
was
same, but just a little bit more updated.
Yeah, so Ernest, had this thing. This one covers up, I think, mostly. Well, it covers actually up to the Civil War or whatever, but it doesn't. It's not. It goes into a lot of detail. Ernest felt there was missing things, so Ernest went ahead and filled in the missing information here, and then continued from there. So it was an interesting book, and it was available during the bicentennial. So it was people were very excited about getting this to learn a little bit more about some of the tales of Methuen. And it's the founding and up until the American Revolution itself. Wow. So those are the first two ones that I got to, and then going through the collection, there was other books. We had this one here. It's called Sketches of the Town of Methuen. This one is done by George Carlton. There's also a cross history.
Yes,
that was or was it Corliss? There was another earlier one.
It was a cross. I didn't bring it with me myself.
Yeah.
He talks about his early life in Methuen. He lived on the old Cross farm. It was almost opposite the end of Pleasant Valley Street, where Merrimack Street is, the house there. That's where he grew up in there. He talks about his experiences going to school, and it's a nice little.
Well,
nice little
Ernie
book.
Mack, who was recognized as a historian as well as you guys. He grew up. He lived on Prospect Street, if I remember correctly, which has changed dramatically since his.
Yes.
I'm sure since his boyhood days. I don't know if he'd recognize Prospect Street now.
Yeah.
It's much different. But his house, somebody bought his house and redid it. Looks really great. So
because he had not updated that house.
No.
When he was there.
It was a historical artifact.
Yes, and he still had a huge cast iron stove in the middle of his living room, and in the kitchen he had a cast iron stove there too. So
really?
it was the old sleigh beds. He had sleigh beds in there and all this stuff. Yeah,
that's something.
Yeah.
Now you've got a book with you too, Ken. What's that?
Yes, this is another book. West Methuen long ago. It was done by Mabel and Minna Noyes. They were sisters, and they lived just right around by where the Rotary was off of Lowell Street there. I think there's a wall there right now, actually, that goes over where their property was. But they wrote a book. They intended apparently to write it for the anniversary and 200th anniversary of Methuen in 1926, but they didn't come out with it until 1929. One of them was a school teacher, but they wrote a history of West Methuen. And it's quite interesting. It goes way back and it talks about all the people, the families that lived there, the farms and whatnot. And it's a very interesting history, but it's not available in reprint up until just recently. The Methuen Historical Society got a grant to reprint this book.
Oh, great.
So they're in the process right now of, because the font is very, very small, so it's going to come out, a lot bigger. But it's got some photographs in it from old farms in the west end of town, and it's a pretty good book. So we're looking forward to having this come out and reprint. So there'll be another one to add to our collection.
That's available on archive.org. is a site that takes a lot of orphan works. People can contribute to it, and so I scanned that one. And uploaded it so that people could have that, because the Joseph Howe book is also on there, but that's from other libraries.
Okay.
This one wasn't there because it was just easier. Sometimes easier to do a digital copy of it.
Yep. And your history of the fire department's out there too, right?
Well, it's not in reprint. I had 1,000 of them made. They're all gone. Yeah. Every once in a while they pop up on Amazon, as
you gotta watch.
Somebody may be selling one, at a yard sale. I don't know, but they're all out there. I contemplated rewriting it.
Yeah.
I actually worked on that, but then I got involved with everything else with the Facebook project
and
the Methuen Life project.
So let me ask you this question, gentlemen. What's one thing that you think people would be genuinely surprised to find out about the city of Methuen? Can't let you have all easy ones.
Oh, what would they be surprised?
Well, I don't know if it's a big surprise, but I don't know if a lot of people realize that, well, of course, Methuen was part of Haverhill originally,
Okay.
and Methuen also stretched up into North Salem at one point. So we had all that, and all of North Lawrence was part of Lawrence. So I don't know if maybe a lot of newer people.
Well, and Searle's property, right, stretched well up.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
He owned all the way up to the Holy Family Hospital and all the way north up to where the Northeast Rehab Hospital. He owned a whole stretch up there. The only public land he had the property pass was Pleasant Street that wasn't his own.
So conversely, Dan, we'll go back to you. What do you wish more people knew about the city of Methuen?
For me, I mean, I'm really focused on the people and the sacrifices. You know, they did the hard part. They created sacrifices. My focus lately had been on the Civil War, because when I was doing my articles for the paper, I would see these, you know, so and so is a leader, you know, in the town, whatever, and then it would say Civil War veteran. So I started doing research on the Civil War veterans, and what I discovered was we say that there's about 350 Methuen people were served in the Civil War, using the criteria of also being born in Methuen or died in Methuen after the war or whatever. I have over 700 names of people there, and some of those names were they went on to become leaders. I say that the Civil War veterans were the 19th century equivalent of the World War II vets, the greatest generation. They saw the worst that man can do to man, and they survived. And so nothing scares them when they're done. So when they come home, they take the chances and they become leaders because they had seen the worst. And but in Methuen, we have the big leaders. We have people like one person who was born in Methuen. His house he didn't move out of the house, but the city moved away from him when they created Lawrence. But he was one of a handful of men who captured Jefferson Davis at the end of the Civil War.
Wow.
So there's and he ended up getting a reward for doing that. Oh man, there's so many stories on this, just on the Civil War alone that I could talk about. That I just find it fascinating that they moved on and became these leaders. In Methuen, we have the leaders. We also have scoundrels. One guy was a veteran of the war who stole the town's treasury, the entire budget they had in cash. He left one day, told his wife he was going to deposit the money, and didn't come back. Tenney had to bail out the town to pay the bills until then. They found the guy, and I couldn't find any more story on this, but they found him. He was walking along Lowell Boulevard, probably got off the train in Lowell, and was walking back to Methuen where he was arrested. You don't see anything. He was just arrested, and you don't hear anything more about that. So he probably had a mental breakdown at that point. Another veteran served time in the Charlestown prison for pedophilia. So there's the scoundrels right there too. So there's so it's like they're not all raise them all up on this pedestal. They're just ordinary people. But I just find that it's important to learn their stories. And we can take inspiration by that.
Absolutely.
From what they've done.
I was in the police station the other day, and there's a giant plaque in there, and it's not new. It's been there since my dad was a cop, that commemorates these two officers that were killed in the peat meadow.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they were...
Emerson and McDermott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you.
One was he was just a constable, I think, or something. He was a part-time cop.
And you read that plaque and you try to visualize where it happened, and it's sometimes it's difficult. You really got to think because things aren't what they looked like then, right? So
that's changed that area. There was like farms, I think. In the
That was
a road going out to the old cemetery. Immaculate Conception
Yeah.
Cemetery
Correct.
off of Lowell Street.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the farms had a slaughterhouse, and that's where they were killed, at the slaughterhouse, because some fugitives from Boston who were involved I think it was Jamaica Plain, who were involved in a murder down there, came because they had family up in this area, and they were hiding out. When the police were investigating the theft of vegetables on the farm, just thinking it was a prank, but they went to investigate, those fugitives thought they were chasing them down, and they killed the cops, dragged them into the woods so they wouldn't be found. There was also one cop also was killed by bootleggers out on the boulevard.
Really?
So, yeah, that was Officer Bauer.
Boulevard. They were chasing down. There was a lot of bootlegging going on.
Yeah, he
coming
climbed
down the boulevard during Prohibition.
Yeah.
They said there was a lot down by Merrimack Park, the amusement park, which used to be up towards Drake.
I do
down
remember. Well, you can still see parts of the old Ferris wheel embedded in the bank.
They said, I haven't been on the river, but they say there's still concrete.
Yeah, when they take you on the
footings and
river
stuff.
tour, you can see the big concrete piece.
You did see that,
yeah.
And actually, I remember Merrimack Valley Park Drive-In, the drive-in theater.
Yes.
I was just talking about that. We gave the foundation award to Jack, and his dad was
McLeod. Jack
McLeod.
Yeah.
He was his dad ran
manager.
Norman ran the drive-in theater.
He did.
And one of the few times I saw my father cry. So my father loved Norman McLeod.
He did.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Good family, and of course I'm still a believer that drive-in theaters can make a comeback. I really do. People tell me I'm soggy, but we'll see. So how can people learn more about the historical landmarks in the city of Methuen? What can they do? If you're talking to a newbie, what would you tell them to start with? Would you tell them to go to a book? Would you tell them to go to a website? What would you tell them to do?
Well, there are two websites that cover Methuen history right now. The Methuen Historical Society has a website, and I haven't looked at it in a little while, but they do have maps of the cemeteries, and they have a lot of information there. The website that I created is called Methuen History, and I have on there the historical portion of all of the National Register nomination or the state inventory forms that we had. I transcribed all those and put them in there, so there's information about each of those properties that we have in that. The National Register, actually ones that got on the National Register are not on that website yet, but they will be. And then also there's the listings of all of the militias, the French and Indian War, Civil War. I think I also have some World War I stuff on there too. So those two websites are the best to go for. And then looking at some of these, well, actually get the book once we're done writing it.
Yeah, yeah, so, literally, yeah.
So that'll be hopefully the most
we're going to create demand for you in advance of the finishing of the book, so that when you come out, you don't print just 1,000 copies, you print 10,000, right?
Yeah. So.
But I mean, the book that I use a lot, and Dan talked about it, is Joseph Howe's book and Ernest's book. That covers mostly the range, all of Methuen's history right from the beginning. Those are available on Amazon. You can buy those.
They're good primers, you know.
If anybody wants to kind of get an idea, they call them sketchbooks because they weren't really a comprehensive history, but it gives you a good background on Methuen's history. Those are the two that I would suggest everyone to start with.
You said Ernest Mack wrote that during the bicentennial?
Right, yes.
Yeah, do you think he was listening to I Like Methuen? Because I know that came out.
That's got to come back. That's Bev Eckel. She wrote
Bev Eckel, that's correct.
Bev Eckel,
in my office,
she's a great person.
Coincidentally, you want to talk about history. So my office is my mother's science class from high school.
Okay.
She was a graduate of the Searles High class of '52. And I'm very late doing this, but we have to replace the windows in the building. They are in dire shape.
Yes, they are.
And so my plan is to sell them. And so I've talked to a firm a couple weeks ago who's coming and going to create a catalog for me of all the windows and what the cost would be for each one. Because you can't put pillar windows in this building.
All right.
Right.
So, and my intent is to buy the first one in my mother's name, put a little brass plaque on it, and use that to try to, people who have done well from Methuen and then left and went elsewhere, or just, residents who stayed local, buy a piece of history, own a piece of history. Because that building is, I got to be honest with you, fantastic. Just fantastic.
It is. That's a great idea. To do that.
So, all right, so it's 6:18. We're going to take a couple-minute pause here. You guys get to catch your breath. And then at the end, I'm going to come to you and say, what else would you like the citizens of Methuen to know about either what you're doing or the Methuen Historic Commission's doing? But I got to do some ads for upcoming events, so you're going to have to sit here and watch that. Sorry. All right, let's go. All right, so the listening tour. So this is something that I really would like as many people to come out as possible. So when we did the State of the City address, I talked about, cognizant of all of us, is, what's an issue for the folks that live in the east end of the city, or the west end of the city, or the central part of the city are not necessarily the same. So we're taking City Hall on the road, if you will. And the first listening session is Wednesday, March 20th at 6:30 p.m. at Borelli's. And thank you to Borelli's for opening up to let us do it there. We're going to host people, and it's going to be a lively, free-flow discussion that you're able to submit questions about projects in the city or ARPA things, or just talk about concerns, your concerns in the city. And you can contact my office for more information at 978-983-8505. Again, that's March 20th, 6:30 at Borelli's. It's not the only one we're going to do. In fact, we have another one. We have a second one scheduled in the east. There it is right there, if you knew what he was talking about, which is March 26th from 6:30 to 8 at Merrimack Valley Golf Club in the Aurora Room. So we've got two scheduled for the east. We're starting there. And, we're going to have, I forgot that, we're going to have the department heads with us. So if there's specific issues you're dealing with that you want to talk about, bring them to this session and let's hash them out. All right. The next one is something, Top Dog Contest. So good on you, Andrew. And the city clerk's office is sponsoring the Top Dog Contest. One of the dogs that gets licensed is going to be proclaimed top dog and get ample billing on the City of Methuen website and other social media. For more details, contact the city clerk at ci.methuen.ma.us. But there's a whole description there I'm not going to read to you because we're at 6:20 p.m. First place winner of the top dog gets a new license free, and their dog's picture will be displayed in the city clerk's office and posted on the website. And then the second and third place winners get licenses 2 and 3. So submit a favorite photo of your dog, and welcome to the Top Dog Contest. Then we have the Skate and Read program. The mayor likes to say skate and then read. And it's every Tuesday and Thursday, and it started last week, March 12th to May 30th from 4 to 6 p.m. Cost is $180 at the Methuen High School rink. For more information, visit MethuenRec.com. Then we have the Boy Scouts of America and the Girl Scouts of America. And by the way, the mayor is jonesing again for some more Girl Scout cookies. So I went to Facebook and I said, I'm jonesing for Girl Scout cookies. And I must have got 50 responses, like immediately. And one young lady sold me 5 boxes of everything, which is great. But between my adult children who live with me and me, there are no more caramel delights available in the Perry household. So we are jonesing for caramel delights. If you're out there and you're a Girl Scout and you've got caramel delights, call me up and I can make your dreams come true. So the different packs here are Mondays at St. Lucy's, different times, and Tuesdays at the VFW. You can talk to the individuals listed here. I know Mr. Corcoran very well. We just had another Eagle Scout, another young man make Eagle Scout a couple weeks ago, and that's terrific. Nevins Library has this coming Saturday, March 16th, the Rainbow Club from 1 to 3 p.m., ages 12 to 16. It's a confidential, inclusive, teen-led club for LGBTQ+, teens and straight allies, right? And it's discussions all about books associated. And then Friday, March 29th from 12:30 to 3, Weaving with Lisa Buglioni, ages 9 to 16. Do you like to weave? I don't, but if you do, we've got it, yeah. I got to be honest with you, we did a Lego thing. You're going to see it coming up for February vacation. It was just like mobbed, right?
Wow, really?
People love Legos, yeah. We have the 21st Annual Fun Hockey League every Tuesday and Thursday starting March 19th, 3:30 to 5:30. Cost is $180. Methuen Ice. Again, visit MethuenRec.com. Methuen Youth Hockey 2024 tryouts is the next slide. And those are the dates, 18th, the 20th, the 19th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, depending upon which group you fall into. Register today at myha.com. Then we have Methuen Girls Softball League 2024. Did I say we got exciting things coming to the Burnham Road Complex and to the Veterans Park? So significant improvements being made based on the capital plan that we invested, that we're finally in a position to do some infrastructure work around the city. So cost for the season is $175, but I can tell you that Burnham Road's going to have LED lights, which is a great thing, and it's going to get a fence for our high school girls to play there. Our varsity girls play there, and we're going to do some significant work on the grass as well. Then we have our Easter egg hunt, which is Saturday, March 30th. I can't believe I'm saying this. Easter already.
It's early. It's early this year.
If you don't believe in global warming, look outside. So Saturday, March 30th at Great Court Park, featuring a visit from the Easter Bunny. There's music, candy, and games. The event starts at 11. Parking's available at St. Basil's, 30 East Street, Methuen. Come on down and join us. Then there's a whole list of things. I think Steve Angelone, I think you should be getting you should be giving me a commission for, shouting out all these things. Everything on the April vacation, including Ken the Lego Masters, and one for Pokemon, is on the left-hand side. So there's Lego Masters, Pokemon, Sports Zone 101, and public skating. All of those, again, contact the MethuenRec.com. And then our spring programs, there's a co-ed volleyball league of 5th through 8th grade. There's a T-ball league that starts April 18th. There's a spring soccer shots that starts April 7th for ages 2 years to 4 years and 8 months. And then we have a youth flag football league starting April 14th that plays at Nicholson Stadium. So come on out and see that. Then we have the Methuen Youth Lacrosse Summer Clinic, which is August 6th through 8th. I'm probably ahead of you guys. You're ahead of me. Methuen Youth Soccer, we got summer programs coming. And then last but by no means least, I wanted to talk about something we talked about at the beginning of the program, which was we've got our tricentennial coming up. So we've had a couple of volunteers call the mayor's office and say, hey, count me in on that. And I want to be clear. So we're looking to do a kickoff event for this at the Organ Hall. I did the inauguration at the Organ Hall.
Amazing
People
building.
loved it, right? So many people came up to me after and said, wow, what a fantastic building. And I said, yeah,
unbelievable, that building.
Every
time I go in there, it's like I'm in awe.
And you hear that music play. And my kids, were impressed because we had them play Star Wars on the way out. So they were thrilled by that. Yeah. But so this 300th committee is intended to be not mayoral-led, is to be citizens-led, just like it was for 250. And the committee for 250 did a great job. Dan and I were talking before the show. So whether we want to do, banquets or balls or parades or, and even, what should the city give itself as an appropriate gift? And so, one of the things I keep talking about is, we need more outside park space. We need more green space in the city. And there's a couple of places that I'm looking at, but, maybe some of the citizens have better ideas than the mayor has, right? Because I mentioned Veterans Park, in addition to Burnham Road, you're going to see a significant change that the street hockey rink, which has been falling apart since I can remember, is being replaced with exercise track equipment. So you're going to have a little space to walk around in there. And we're also bringing in pickleball courts, which are big right now. And the high school, I don't know if you saw the city council meeting where we talked about. So we've got a joint project, with Methuen Public Schools, where Methuen Public Schools is repaving all the high school parking lot, adding accessible spaces because there weren't enough. But we're also doing the baseball field, the tennis courts at the same time. So that we're going to have more tennis courts and more pickleball courts there, and all of them will be ADA accessible. So that's the good news. All right, so you had 10 minutes while we did the ads for people. What's the one thing, if you think about your appearance on the show today, what's the one thing you want to say to the people of Methuen about the work you do in the Historic Committee?
Well, I like people to be more involved. I mean, people are interested in the history because I've been writing in Facebook for a couple of years now, and I've got a good response on it. People love the history, but we need more people to be involved.
You do.
And you're mentioning the anniversary coming up, and there's only a handful of us that are on the Historical Commission, Historical Society, and whatnot, and we're all older people. We need young blood. Yeah. And I'm hoping that through the message that I'm putting out with Facebook and Methuen Life is get some young people involved. Yep. We need youth in here because who knows how much longer we've got, and then it's gone after we're gone. So I'd like to see more people and younger people get actively involved.
Well, and so another day I'll talk to you about. So most so I'm a member of the Ancient Order Hibernians. I have been for 20 years. Most fraternal organizations like that are dwindling.
They are.
Right? Because the younger generation, they just don't see right?
No.
So you see, and I mentioned it, like the Knights of Columbus or the VFW, you're not getting, lots of new members, right? Because when the young veterans come back or they're just, like, I look at my kids and I say, why don't you join the Ancient Order Hibernians? And they say, why would I? Right? And it's a difficult question to answer sometimes, right? So, Dan, how about you?
I'd like to get, like he mentioned, I'd like to get the students involved and work more closely with the high school on some of the projects. We have a lot of work to do with the historical collection. One of the projects we wanted to do it's a big project, is to digitize the historical collection. We were actually we put in for a grant with the Essex National Heritage Commission for their Future Leaders program. So we're hoping we'll get that. And then also Marky's office, we met about that. Marky's office had asked for some ideas, and we put in a proposal to do that digitization project, which is a much bigger project, to try to digitize the books and the documents and all the things that we have and make it accessible on a website. So
That'd
the public.
Great.
So those are the things that we need help. We need help scanning it, the documents. We'll need help, all of that. But I want to get kids involved. I want students involved because I want them to appreciate the history. And if we can get them when they're younger, then they'll be moving into where we are after we're gone.
Passion.
Right. So once they get that passion for history, it's not an abstract. It's something that they find themselves contributing to.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to come on the show today. It went by pretty quickly, didn't it?
It did, yes.
You thought it was going to be painful, but it wasn't quite as bad as you thought. So my thanks to Ken Doherty and Dan Gagnon for coming on. If you want to know more about Methuen's history, reach out to them. But again, remember what I said. Let's get some people involved, both in the Historic Committee, but also our 300th planning, right? Because it's an opportunity to do some really good things for the city. And to Ken's point, it'd be nice to have some younger folks involved.
Absolutely.
We actually, just so you both know, we got a digitization grant from the Commonwealth, Digital Archives, and our CIO was able to use it to rid the city of storage of like 5 lockers. Now, these were not historic documents, just, but, the city was paying for, literally had documents in like, those storage places you see everywhere. And we had some like on Pleasant Valley Street. We had some up on House Street, up past me. And I'm like, so how do we know what's in there? And everybody's saying, well,
the fire,
we don't.
Or water damage or anything else.
Correct.
You can lose these things forever.
Right.
That's what's important with historical documents, to get those digitized so that they're there forever.
Yep.
So that's something that's working in
Last thing, because we're running over. When does the Historic Committee meet? Once a month?
The commission meets once a month. It's the 3rd Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
So.
And can people watch that on TV or
no, we've been doing it by Zoom, but I think now that the weather's getting better, we're going to start meeting in person.
Okay.
So there are openings on the commissions.
Yeah, there are openings on the commission.
There are openings. The mayor knows that, right?
Yes.
Get out there. Send an application in to Jordan at the mayor's office, and we can get some members on the Historic Commission. All right, thank you both for coming in today. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I got my shopping list to go out and get some books, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show real soon.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.